Welcome to Tac Ops. My name is Covert Cabal. Greg R. I started the YouTube channel. This is going to be a new podcast. It's our first one here. Talk about all things military related. With me, I have Eric Marino. Say hi, Eric.
Hello. Everybody calls me KingNeptune, by the way, so you can just call me whatever you want.
KingNeptune. So this is going to be our first one. So what do you want the topic to be for today?
Oh man, I'm super excited about this. And well, before we get into the topic, one of the things I wanted to do is kind of introduce ourselves. And so I want to kind of explain how we met each other too. So first off, I want to explain like what your background is and what you do. So, and everybody I think understands you that they're the YouTube guy, but like how did you get into it? Like why YouTube? Because I tell you what, I have this little niche with Reddit and I love it and I love Twitter, but YouTube scares the hell out of me. And so like why YouTube? Like why did you start with that?
Well, I guess to go back way to the beginning, military tactics and strategies is something I've just always been interested in. I always tell this kind of nerdy story that back when I was in kindergarten, I was 5 or 6 years old. We had a time where we had to write the president a letter. Now, obviously, the president didn't read any of this stuff, but we had to write out a letter, and all the kids just wrote cliche things like, I like your dog, or different things like that. But I took the time and I wrote, do not send the military in big groups. And my teacher looked at it and she said, Greg, why are you sending this? Do you want to write something different? I said, no. She said, what does it mean? And I said, well, I couldn't fit because, when you're that young, you write in font 72 and it's huge and you don't have space to fill out everything. So I said, well, if you send the military in big, large groups, it's going to be easy for the enemy to target them. So that's my kind of little nerdy story. But
I was sure she was like, oh, right. Okay, good. Yep. Like, let's keep this kid away from sharp objects.
Yeah. So that was going back to 5, 6 years old, whatever age you are in kindergarten. And ever since then, it's just something I've always been fascinated in, something I've always read about. Video games, all the strategy games like StarCraft, Civilization, all those games going all the way back. But when it comes to YouTube, it got to a point where I'd seen every single documentary on YouTube related to military stuff, about wars, you name it, everything. So got to a point where I figure, you know what, I'll make my own. And the one thing that always annoyed me is, I'm sure you guys have seen all this stuff before, is all the robot voiced YouTube videos. Have you seen those?
Oh yeah, I've seen them a few times. I think they're really creepy. I doxed myself a long time ago for literally nothing. Like I tried to get that Twitter blue check and then they stopped doing it. So like I used to have a lot of respect for people who didn't dox themselves at all, but now I feel like it's a way to hide. And for a lot of people, that's what they need. They need that comfort to go online and have that veil. But when you're trying to be that person that's trying to go out there and convey yourself as a public speaker and you're trying to convey information to people and you hide still, it gets a little odd to me. And especially when you use a robotic voice. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me.
Oh, yeah. Especially, and it's just extremely difficult to sit there and listen to. Just not having a human voice. So anyway, yeah, that's what I started doing. I actually went to school for visual effects and motion graphics. So I have that knowledge of how to make videos, how to edit them, animations, 3D modeling, and all that stuff. And I've always been interested in military tactics and strategy. So I put the two together and started making videos. Started out slow, like any YouTube channel, I guess. But I'm really just still amazed by the growth and how many viewers I get. It's unbelievable.
How many, how long have you had the YouTube channel?
Let's see. I started it, I believe, April 2017 was my first video, I want to say. Around April 2017. So almost 2 years.
Oh wow! So not that I was assuming maybe like 4 years. I didn't look when you actually created it. So man, that's crazy. That's so crazy. That's crazy growth. Because I've had the subreddit for I don't know, maybe 4 years, I guess. And so maybe I should introduce myself so everybody
Right.
kind of understands what I'm talking about. So, Greg said, my name is Eric Marino. So I am the founder of Submarines, the Submarines subreddit. So submarines.reddit.com. And I also helped found our Discord server, and I wish I could give you some cool link, but it's just a bunch of numbers, and I can't tell you what they are at this time. But and then I also have a Twitter account, so at KingNeptune767. So I try to help promote the submarine community. But so my background really is I joined the Navy right after September 11th, 2001, and I had to wait about a year because I was only a junior when that went down. So I had to wait to graduate high school, and then went into the Navy and went to sub school. Ended up getting to the USS Hampton around 2004, and I was a conventional mechanic and did that for a few years. And then we went on a deployment to the Westpac. I actually did my first underway was actually to the North Pole, believe it or not. So, I showed up and they were like, hey, in a few weeks we're going to the North Pole, and I didn't even know that was a thing that submarines did. Like they don't really get that in depth in sub school. It's more of just trying to teach you your job. And so, okay, we're going to the North Pole, and so I did that, and then we went on Westpac in 2007, 2008, and pulled back into San Diego. So I actually got to kind of go around the world and see the Westpac, and got to see Australia and Japan and all that stuff. It was really cool. And got out in 2008, and now I've just been in manufacturing ever since, just kind of living the normal life. But 4 or 5 years ago, I got that itch that all the military guys get, where they're just fucking bored and they miss it and they want to kind of get back into what they were. And I was like, hey, man, like I was one of those people that I hated being there. I hated it. I did not want to be there anymore. I was so ready to get out. I was crying. I was so happy to get away from that fucking submarine, man. I was so tired of it. But that actually kind of ingrained it in later, where I'm like, fuck, man, that place it changed my life. Like, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, and there's no way I'll ever do anything that hard again. And it was just like, I really fucking miss it. And I wanted to kind of bring that to everybody else. So I started the subreddit and kind of built that up, and then started the Discord server, and kind of went into different types of social media to try to help build a community. And it's been fun. The problem with community building is it doesn't make you any money, and I had to do a lot of work to help build this place. But now I want to venture into something that's going to help me make a little money on the side doing this. So it's one of the reasons we started podcasts, was to help us quit our day jobs, and so we can do this for a living and help. For me really, I would love to do this for a living, because I can spend a lot more time helping build a community and get all the submariners together in the international community, and have a really cool place. But that comes with time, and hopefully we don't sound like a bunch of assholes on here, and people actually listen to us, so.
Well, that's the dream, right? Everyone has a hobby, everyone has interests and passions, and if you can make money off that, hey, that's the dream. Yeah, I've been really fortunate with that with YouTube too. But anyway, I think that brings us into a perfect topic then for our first podcast, submarines, since that is your background.
Yeah, man, let's do it. I can talk all day about submarines. That's pretty much all I do all day.
Okay, so I talked to you before, and you said you were on a Los Angeles class, right?
Yeah, so I was on the USS Hampton, which is Flight 3, Los Angeles, 688I. There's another name for it.
And then those are attack submarines.
Right, definitely. That was the only boat I was on. I was never stationed on anything else other than that.
Ah. Yep, that compared to the big ballistic missile class submarines, which you were not on, but
right. I've taken tours of all the boats now, I think.
Oh, really?
I didn't get to do any of the cool ones. Like, I never went down on like NR1 or I've never been on any of the Seawolves, but I've been on I got to tour the Texas when I was in. I got to tour the Georgia, which was the ballistic missile at the time, and then I got to tour, obviously the Hampton every day of my life, all day of my life. And then I actually got to go down on recently with the USS South Dakota. I went down to the commissioning for that a couple of months ago.
Oh, right. Yeah. And that's a Virginia class, correct?
Yeah,
that's
the South Dakota
replacement.
It's the newest Virginia class that the U.S. Navy has.
Right, those are going to be the replacement for the Los Angeles class. Originally, the Seawolf were going to be, correct? But they were too expensive, and with the end of the Cold War, they couldn't justify them.
Well, I think the Seawolf was more of an experiment. Like, what can we do with this thing? And let's make it way too crazy. Like, let's make it way too expensive and just max this thing out. Because when it comes to actually building the next generation, we can tone it back and we can make it a little bit more realistic. I mean, that 8 tubes is awesome. That thing is crazy. I don't know if you ever played Cold Waters and got to use the Seawolf. It's awesome, man. I can't imagine having 8 torpedo tubes, but it's just so unrealistic. I mean, the amount of maintenance that would take to take care of those tubes, as a torpedoman. For the last couple of years that I was on the Hampton, I actually cross-rated over torpedoman because we didn't have any, and we went through a pretty big attrition time with them, and we lost a lot of them. And so I cross-rated over torpedoman, and I got to learn all that stuff. And the amount of maintenance that those tubes take, they take time, and having 8 of them, well, now you got double. So now you have to have double the torpedo room. You got to have double the amount of people to maintain those tubes and load them. And oh man, I just can't imagine. So they had to take that idea and just go crazy with it and then step back. And that's why they only made one. And that's why the Seawolf is known as this kind of princess of the pier that never left, because it was just always broken and always, dealing with problems, because I think it was kind of designed to be that way. I think it was designed to be this just crazy freaking thing that we'll never do. And then we tone it back a little bit and we get the Virginia class. So.
Yep, and I'm also, I think all the money they spent researching and all the development and everything, they took a lot of that with them to the Virginia class as well.
Oh
right?
yeah,
and that kept costs down.
A lot, and that was kind of the idea. The Navy's always had like experimental submarines that they play with, and then they make prototypes, and then they make actual classes out of them. So they do that with a lot of different things. It's not even just submarines; they do that with aircraft and all kinds of stuff. So.
And now we're even seeing things like putting an Xbox controller on to control the periscope.
Oh man, it was so funny too, because when we went down to the South Dakota, they let you play with that thing, and so you're sitting in control, and you can see. So from the pier in Groton, you can see the USS Nautilus, which is the
first nuclear submarine.
Right. The first nuclear boat, the museum boat that's out there. And so you can zoom in with this thing. So you're sitting there with this Xbox controller and you're looking at a screen with a crosshair on it essentially, but you're not necessarily shooting anything with this thing, but it looks kind of odd, like you're looking through you're looking like a scope. And so I'm sitting here and I get like trigger shy, and I'm like, so what happens if I hit A? Like, I don't want to shoot a torpedo. Like, what the fuck is going on with this thing? I don't know what to do with this. And so I look back, and there's a few guys that are stationed on the boat in control, and I look back and I'm like, I don't know what these buttons do. What do they do? And he's like, you hit the right trigger to zoom in, the left trigger to zoom out. And I'm like, this is weird, man. I don't want to hit the A button and like shoot missiles or something, man. This is so weird. Because you feel like you're driving it.
You can hit the pause button, right?
Yeah, definitely. You just hit start over or whatever. But
restart mission.
It was cool, man, but it was really weird. And we didn't have photonics masks. We had the traditional super romantic, periscopes that you hang your arms on and rotate around. And so we never had nothing like that. So it was really weird because when I first played with it, it was on the USS Texas, and it was like a flight joystick. But those things cost like $30,000 to replace them. So they were like, why are we doing that? Let's replace it with a $35 Xbox controller, So.
Yeah, and something like that, where you can understand the need to actually develop your own systems for certain things. For example, if you need to protect it if it's at risk of being hacked or anything like that. But if it's on a submarine, I guess it makes sense that you can get away with more off-the-shelf technology, as they call it, like using an Xbox controller.
Right, and
I don't know how much of a security risk that is.
Well, that's the great thing about a submarine is you're basically you have no connection to anything. You know what I'm saying? Like you have like when you have, I don't know if you have Bitcoin, if you ever dealt with that, but you put it in cold storage, or is it cold storage? I can't remember. I'm not a Bitcoin expert, but it's
right.
like it's where you have no actual connection to anything. Like you actually put it on like a solid state drive and put it in a safe. Like there's nothing that's connected to it. So submarines are the same way. Like when you're underway, you don't get satellite, you don't get TV, you can't listen to your phone, or you don't have no connection to anything because there's nothing that's going to penetrate the water. So like an Xbox controller, like sure, you could probably somehow hack a Bluetooth into it, but how would you even do that? You're going to have to somehow penetrate the water, penetrate the boat, and get into the Xbox controller. Like it's just there's just no real way to do that. And what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Just make the periscope zoom in and out? And I don't know. It just
right. I mean, maybe. I know this is really going way out there, but I'm not sure where the Xbox controller is made. But there could be, if it's made in China, they could put some sort of chip in there and make it do something. But you're right. What is it gonna do? The worst they could probably do is make it malfunction. But,
right, it's weird. Like it seems over the past years you've seen the military when they don't care about it getting hacked, they just make it as digital as possible. But when they don't think it's possible, or when they're really really worried about it, they'll make it just stay in the 80s. Like if you look at the silos, it's all just 80s technology because it's just completely disconnected. Like you'd have to sneak in there and plug in something to it, which good luck, where are you even going to find that technology anymore? You know, it's almost a defense mechanism in itself. You just can't find 80s computers. I don't know if they just have this giant, huge warehouse that they just pick all these parts from, and they're just they're just living on it, because it's not like Microsoft has any of this shit anymore. So it's almost a defense mechanism in itself, because you literally can't connect to it. There's no Bluetooth, there's nothing like that. It's literally, you know, IBM with a black screen with green letters. You know,
well, that is true. Yeah, you'd have to physically actually get in there to do anything.
Yeah, they got the big floppy disks. I mean, it's crazy. Like it was stuff I had when I was, the very first computer I had, essentially, that was in the early 90s.
So getting back to, you mentioned Cold Waters. So you're a fan of that game? You play it?
Oh yeah, I'm also one of the moderators for the subreddit. The subreddit's pretty small, but coldwaters.reddit.com, and so we try to push the game as much as we can. I have so many communities I have to take care of right now, so it's one of the ones that I want to grow eventually, but it's on the back burner. But it's a great game. I think it's the best sub sim overall out there. I like Command. I think that's a great game, but it's more of like overall, it's kind of boring. You know, there's no graphics, but it's great if you want to learn how the military works. I think they all have their advantages.
Exactly.
I think overall, when it comes to submarines, though, I think Cold Waters is hands down the best. You know, there's a reason.
It's such a good way to learn these things too. I mean, you can only learn so much by sitting there and reading about it in a book or on the internet somewhere. But when you're actually playing it, you have control over it, turning the sub, evading a torpedo, or sitting there and listening to the sonar, picking up sounds and identifying, classifying different sounds that you hear. It makes it so much easier and fun.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when it comes to explaining what these things do, like it's an easy way for me to say, you know, I can sit here and talk to you all day about submarine tactics and what you're supposed to do if a torpedo comes after you or whatever. But playing Cold Waters really is just, it's a fun way to do it. It's not 100% accurate, but man, it's about as accurate as you're going to get. I mean, that game is, it's awesome. Like it is really accurate. So it's easy to say, oh, we do this and we do that and we run, but you know, you can just play the game, and if you don't die, that's pretty much what we do, you know. And so it's the best I've had, and it's kind of different because you can see from outside the sub, so you can kind of run from torpedoes like they're dogs, you know, or whatever. But it's for a beginner and somebody who doesn't know anything about submarines, is trying to understand how the tactics work and how the world works and what it's like. It's the best because you get to play with, there's the different types of countries and the different types of torpedoes, and there's you get to actually play with the conditions of the environment. So your sonar is not going to work if you're underneath the layer, and it's great, man. It's super realistic for what you can get, and it's I think it's $30, and generally Steam will put a sale on. You can get it for 15 or something, but it's totally worth it if you're trying to get into what submarines are.
Exactly. So that game, I had a lot of fun. I've played that for hours and hours and hours. That game, and then DCS. Do you ever play DCS at all?
No, but like watching your videos, I've seen the clips, which I also think is great because you can use these games because they're relatively accurate enough now that you can use them as like teaching aids. You can like cut a clip out and say, this isn't 100% accurate, but I mean, this is pretty much what's going to happen. And you can use it as like a simulation tool. And I have not played DCS, and that's the next one I want to get. I just need more money to buy all these games because I got way too many games at this point. But, and DCS is one of those ones where you get a lot of add-ons and stuff. So, oh man, it'd just be a sinkhole of downloadable content. But,
oh man, yeah, you can spend so much money on there. I mean, they give it out for free, so the game is free, and you get one aircraft with it. I think it's the Su-25T, I want to say. Anyway, you get one free aircraft, and you're like, oh great, it's free, why not? But then you can buy different maps, you can buy different aircraft, and it just goes on, and you can easily spend several $100s. But yeah, it's a great game, and like you said, I've used a few different clips from it. Like for example, you're not going to find a lot of these. I just made a video recently on anti-radiation weapons and SEED,
right,
suppression of enemy air defense, and a lot of these weapons you can't find footage online for. So it was nice to be able to use something like DCS and record the screen for a couple of those, so I can really demonstrate what I'm talking about.
Yeah, man, I'm a big believer in using all the tools you can when it comes to open source intelligence, and sometimes it's video games. You just got to take what you're given. Like that's why I love playing CMA&O, because they have just a huge database of stuff that I would love to go out and buy a Jane's Fighting Ships, but I don't have $1,200 to buy something it's obviously amazing. I mean, everybody understands that that's the best thing you're going to get. I mean, the military uses it. All the militaries use them as far as I understand. But, I got 2 kids, man. I got bills to pay. I don't have $1,200 to spend on a book. And so you just got to use what you get.
You don't have Jane's Fighting Ships? Not even an older one? Let's see.
I wish.
Here. 2005, 2006. I think I got it for like $30 or $40.
Yeah, and I want to. Well, I don't mind getting an older one. Like I probably actually read that one because that's probably one of the ones we had on our boat. But I want to get like a new one. I want to get like a 2018, 2019. Yeah, I don't want to get a 10-year-old one. I want to see all the newer stuff that's going on.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like you said, then you're looking at spending a couple $1,000s, unfortunately.
Oh man, I'm gonna do it one day. One of these days when this podcast makes me $1 million, I'm gonna spend it on Jane's Fighting Ships.
Maybe we can start a GoFundMe page for Eric Marino's Jane's Fighting Ships 2019. Of course, by then it'll already be 2020 and it'll be out of date.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Jane's will kind of come out of the social media closet and they'll be our sponsor or something. Boom!
Maybe
that would be awesome.
So DCS I think is great for it's another way, a great way to learn how a lot of these tactics, how a lot of the weapons work, actually visually seeing this stuff compared to just reading about it. I think it's almost equal. It's if not maybe even more so than Cold Waters is for submarines. So you have the naval stuff with Cold Waters. They don't do ships to an extent. I've seen, I don't know, you said you mod their Reddit page. Did they make playable ships yet? I remember reading about that a while ago.
Oh, yeah, man. That's one of the great things I love about Cold Waters is, almost all their downloadable content is free. And they have this huge ships add-on that they have now. And they've just been adding more and more stuff to it for free. And so you can play with the surface ships now. You can play with the Russian submarines, and they put they have some all kinds of cool stuff. You can just watch Jive's channel, and you can see all the different ships that you can play with. And they even made a special ship for him, a special submarine for him.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So he has this it looks like a disco ball. It's pretty crazy. It looks awesome. We have
maybe
the mods.
We can get a Tac Ops one on there one day.
Right, I'm trying to get a submarine subreddit. I want them to actually make Subsnoo into an actual submarine, like a playable graphic. But the problem is that it takes a long time for those indie game guys to make something like that. You know, it's not something they could just do overnight. They're not Blizzard, you know. So it's super cool when they do stuff like that. Like when they made that submarine for Jive, I thought that was fucking awesome because they're actually engaging the community. They're not being this game that's hiding behind the shadows, just trying to make money off people. You know, I think I love that company from top to bottom. It's great, man. I love those guys.
So then, I guess the last one, the third one you mentioned was Command Modern Air Naval Operations. Kind of an unruly long name, but that's my hands down my favorite game.
Yeah, I mean, overall, if you want to play something that teaches about the military and stuff, man, it's great. It's great, and it's one of those games where you can just like tell everybody to go do something, and it just does it. You just kind of watch it play out. So once you stop micromanaging, yeah, definitely. Once you stop micromanaging and you realize it's kind of just it's more of a theater. You just watch it all play out. It's really cool because I mean, I could sit here and talk all day about submarines, but I don't know shit about the S-400. I don't know, anything on the ground, anything with the Army. Oh man, I couldn't tell you shit about tanks. I could tell you we have an Abrams tank. That's about all I got. That's about all I got when it comes to anything with wheels on it. So
to be honest, same thing here. The actual Army is an area that I do not know as much about. So,
and that's great, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast because I don't know everything. I don't know everything about submarines, man. Fuck, man, I have the Discord server, and I have guys in there that live in Russia, and they try to help us understand what they do, and it's not just some weird hidden thing that we're all guessing about, you know. And then we do the same thing with those guys. We're like, you know, we're not. This isn't Red October. You know what I'm saying? Like we're all doing the same thing. We're just trying to share information. We're not obviously doing anything secret or fucking our states over or whatever it is. But you know, we're just people trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So I don't know. Like I said before, you gotta use all the tools you can with open source intelligence. And so we try to provide all the tools we can. But I'm going on a rant. I don't even know where I was going with that. But
well, that's the great thing about you can do that to an extent with that Command Modern Air Naval Operations. You have the game, right? I think you just got it recently, you said.
Well, I originally bought the Steam because they have standalones, so you could buy the standalones and I bought the silent service one, so just the submarine ones to kind of get used to it. And then once I figured out how to play it, then I bought the whole thing. Like I bought the actual full version when it went on sale on Steam. So I don't have any of the downloadable content yet, but I do have the standalone and then just the regular version of it.
There's a few. So what was it called? Oh, Chains of War. If you're ever interested, or anyone else's, if you're looking for a DLC, Chains of War for Command Modern Air Naval Operations is really, really good. The submarine, I never played Silent Service. I'm not a big fan of the way they model submarines in that game. I'd rather play Cold Waters for that, but
right, and so yeah, obviously I'd like to. I would play if it's just submarines. I would play Cold Waters first. But what I really love about Command is that you can play with all these different ones because you know Cold Waters. They actually have to put a 3D model together and they have to make it work. And there's a lot of work compared to where Command can go, oh, well, here's a circle with a line pointing straight up, and we're going to give it a different name, and yes. They can make it. They can
just a few attributes different. Yep.
Right, it's more like reading a book where you have to use your imagination more, but you have so much more to play with. So, like, right when we started learning about the Poseidon weapon, they've already got it. I messaged them. And I'm like, we should have this, and they're like, we've had it. We've had it for like a month now. Like, you got to catch up, man. Like, what? So you can actually go out and practice with it and play with it, and they keep that database super up to date. So that's where. With Cold Waters, you don't really get to go against the airplanes. You don't get to go against the land or nothing like that. So you just get to experience more of the military experience really than it's just Cold Waters where it's submarines and ships.
Well, that's the yeah. So, like you mentioned, there are no graphics. So, if anyone doesn't know, Command Modern Air Naval Operations. Look up a video of it on YouTube. There are no graphics at all. It's just almost like a radar screen or like a real basic outline of countries. That's all you get. And it's they say it's the spiritual successor to a game called Harpoon. Harpoon came out 20, 30 years ago. It started out as a board game, actually. So you mentioned The Hunt for Red October, and I'm drawing a blank right now. Who was the guy? I don't know why. Tom Clancy.
Yeah, Tom Clancy.
So I guess, I don't know if it was for that book he wrote or if it was for another book, but they were saying they used Harpoon, the board game version of it, to actually model out how a battle would take place. And then he used that information for one of his books. I can't remember if that was for The Hunt for Red October or not. Anyway, there was a video game that came out in the 90s and early 2000s called Harpoon. And very, very similar to Command Modern Air Naval Operations. And I played that game for years and years and years, ever since I was a little kid. So yeah, Command is a major upgrade to that, but still, yep, nothing flashy, no graphics. The most exciting thing you'll get is there is a mod or something you can download, a database with pictures for all the individual aircraft and everything that you can have in there. So you can actually see a visual representation of what this little dot is on the map. But that's about the most flashy and exciting thing you'll get in the game. I remember one time.
Man, it's vital. It's vital. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So I remember one time my girlfriend walked in and I was playing it, and something. I think I was getting attacked by Russian Tu-22 M3s, launching a couple dozen anti-ship missiles at my carrier strike group, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy. You know, I'm trying to avoid these missiles and I'm under attack. And she looked at it. She's like, there's just a couple dots. Are you kidding? But yeah, it's a great game. So I have, according to Steam, I'm looking at it right now, I have 1,784 hours in that game.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jesus. I don't think I have, oh man. Do I have that much hours on video games? Oh yeah, I probably do. Probably over the time of my life. But
well, I do admit though, some of that might be from leaving the game open overnight or forgetting about it. And also there's been...
Right.
I've probably spent 100, 200 hours just looking through that database. So have you actually spent any time looking through it?
Oh yeah. So what I like to do is before I go into Google, because the problem with Google is if I search for, S400, like I'm gonna get Google's search page, which isn't really designed for like military research, right? Because I have to go into images and search through the images for a cool photo that makes sense, and then I gotta go to maybe the Wikipedia, but I don't know. Maybe then I gotta try to search for some type of credible website, maybe that isn't trying to sell me bullshit from either sides, and so it's actually just really easy to start with. So I just go to the database first and say, hey, the S400, and it'll tell you, how far the missiles fly, what it's targeting at, what they do with them. It's great, man. And then especially if you have the photo add-on, you can see what it looks like. That's the other thing is I don't know what a lot of this shit looks like. I hear a lot about it, but I don't. And that was one of the reasons I started watching your YouTube channel, because I don't see anything like visually. And I think that's why your YouTube channel is so successful, is because there's no visual. Like even watching, stuff on TV, like they just have small clips, but having a dedicated channel or a dedicated place to see these things in a credible sense, I think it's really important, and I think that's why I really draw myself to Command, probably like you did, and then your YouTube channel too. So,
oh yeah, it's a big difference between seeing something and not seeing it. So, but yeah, the game is still great, and that, like you were saying, that database is awesome, and they've just relatively recently, I think within the last year, they made it so you can click on individual things in the database entry, and it'll bring you to something else. So, for example, if it has the S400, it'll have what kind of missiles it carries. So like the 48N6 or the 40N6. And then you can click on that individual missile and it'll bring you to the database entry for that, which is kind of cool. Small thing, but yeah, I've spent countless hours looking through that.
Yeah, but that little difference where you don't have to go in and search everything
yeah.
that, especially when you start getting into like countries where they're giving it weird names, or especially, one of the things Russia was, and I swear they did this on purpose to make it confusing, is they have project numbers, especially for the submarines, for everything. They're all project numbers. Like, I can't memorize numbers like that. I mean, like, holy cow, I can barely memorize actual names of submarines at this point. There's no way I'm memorizing Project 939.98B6, and I think they did that on purpose because it's just really confusing for NATO, and which is another reason why I think NATO gave them special names. It just made it a whole lot easier to follow.
Well, that makes it so complicated across the board. So Russia has either a project number, and then they have a thing called a GRAU. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. GRAU number. And it'll be a couple different numbers and letters. Then sometimes I'll actually have a name for the system. And then NATO will have a NATO designation, like, for example, the SA-20 or SA-21 for the S-400, the
Right.
SA-21. And then they'll also have a name for it. So Growler is the NATO name for the S-400. It's a nightmare to keep all these things straight.
Well, especially because like when people talk about it, like I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know it's called S-400 and not the Growler. But when we talk about the Typhoon class, we call it by the NATO name. We don't call it by the Akula because that's confusing because they have a NATO Akula class.
Yeah.
So it's that's where it gets really even more confusing, is that we kind of intermingle both names. I think we just, because we're fucking Americans, we're just looking for the cool name. Oh, S-400 sounds way better than the Growler. What is a Growler? Some kind of rabbit? I don't know, whatever. But
yep. And then it will make it really complicated. So, for example, with the S-300, you will have the NATO name for that. The original one was the SA-10. And then you have things like the I'm gonna embarrass myself by not knowing. So you got the SA-10, you got the SA-20, but those are both S-300s, different variants of it. It's very difficult to keep track of it because the U.S. or NATO at least, when they were naming these things, they must have just started naming them in order of how they came out. So the SA-10 is the S-300, the long-range surface-to-air missile system. The SA-11 is a shorter to mid-range, the Buck. The SA-9, so before the SA-10, is a real short range, the Strela. So it's not like they're in any set order. It must have just been they were naming them when they were released or when they found out about them. So just by going by those names, if you don't know all this information, if you don't have it memorized, it's very, very difficult to actually get any information out of it. You can't just tell just by the name, unfortunately.
Right, and so like we hear a lot of stuff that's going on in between India and Pakistan, and so I did a little research on, the different submarines that they use, and man, it's so I'm trying to research the Arihant. Like I don't know a whole lot about their submarines. I've been spending a lot of time on Russia, and I've been spending a lot of time trying to dig into the black hole of China, and it is a huge time killer. But those are golden
we can
nuggets.
talk about that sometime. Yeah, that would be that's a fun one. You're absolutely right. It's a black hole for information.
Jeez, and so I'm trying to dig in a little bit into India, because we obviously know a lot that India and Pakistan have always kind of had their deal going on, but it was never really a thing. But just recently they're going at it. It's getting pretty warm over there. So I was doing a little research into the Arihant, and I couldn't even tell you what their ballistic missile name was.
Now, real quick, just to back up for listeners, the Arihant is India's ballistic missile submarine. So it's a submarine that carries not necessarily intercontinental ballistic missiles, but ballistic missiles armed with nuclear warheads that they can then fire, usually while they're submerged, at an enemy nation. Right. That's the Arihant. That's what India is building right now. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's actually their class, because they're building. Well, they've got the second one built, which is the Arigat, the Arighat, the Arigat, and it's actually in the water, and it's going through its final testing. So it'll probably be active around 2020, 2021. So they'll actually have a second ballistic missile submarine here pretty soon. But yeah, so like I was when I was talking about the Arihant, I didn't know what the ballistic missile was. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. And so it took me a while to even learn about the American ballistic missiles, because I was on a fast attack. We never dealt with anything like that, So it took me a year to learn about the D5, but so I spent a little time trying to figure it out. And so you figure out they have the K-15 and then they have the K-4. I mean, it's like, geez, man, why?
Which is confusing too.
Yeah, can you pick a name that's not so damn? Like, give it some cool names, man. Like, be like the UK and name them the Warspite, or the Dreadnought. Give it some cool names that everybody remembers, because, man, it's confusing. Just giving it a letter and a number is just ridiculous to me. And I think it's a loss and a little propaganda you can throw out there. But
right. So real quick, just for listeners, just to kind of simplify some of this stuff, I don't want anyone to be lost. So there's really two different types, for the most part, of submarines, right? There's the fast attack class submarines, which usually go out and hunt other submarines. Now, there's been a little bit of crossover. A lot of them have cruise missiles now, or anti-ship missiles that they can fire at ships or land targets. Like the one you were on, they would have had the Tomahawk cruise missile, right?
Yeah. We had a Flight 3, so we had the vertical launch tubes.
Yeah, the VLS.
So we had 12 tubes. Yeah, and you can shoot Tomahawks from torpedo tubes.
Right. Yep. So there's that. There's a fast attack, and then there's the ballistic missile subs, and that's what we're talking about now with India, the Arihant. The D5 you mentioned, that's the US's. They call them SLBM, submarine launched ballistic missile, right? The Trident. Trident D5 is a specific version of it.
Yeah, the Trident D5. I'm not a super expert in that thing. I've never even seen one in real life, but
no.
So they use the W76 warhead, which they just got the latest update, which extends the life of it, I think, another 20 years. So it makes it I mean, that's huge when it comes to nuclear weapons, because they take maintenance. So if you extend the life of that thing, it's like anything else, like extending the life of any type of military weapon. It makes it a huge deal, and so that was a big deal.
And that is a big thing a lot of people don't think of. So you think of, okay, the U.S. or Russia or whatever, we have these nuclear weapons, we have them, we're good to go. But these things require a lot of maintenance to keep them active, to keep them running, to keep them working, right? Like these D5s, they were built a while ago, and even the W76 warhead that they have on top of them, they were built a while ago. So you have to continuously keep doing maintenance to make sure these things will still work if, God forbid, nuclear war ever broke out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Ask the Soviet Union, what, I won't say that's what collapsed them, but trying to maintain a submarine force, you got to understand, the Soviet Union, Russia, it's a little bit different GDP, but they're relatively the same size as Texas. They're smaller than California. They're actually smaller than Texas when it comes to GDP. So trying to maintain that same Navy that the U.S. Navy has with a GDP that's only I don't know what it is, a tenth of that. Holy cow, man! You just can't keep up with the maintenance, and that's why you start seeing all these accidents. You start seeing all these nuclear accidents, and then they're taking boats and they're like, "Fuck, we don't even know how to get rid of the reactor. We're just gonna scuttle out in the middle of nowhere." So it's you start doing a lot of shady shit, and so how many people do you know that buy an amazing car and can't do the maintenance? They figure out that it's $1,000 to do an oil change, and like,
right, just a tire. Yeah. Oh man, brakes, rotors, all that stuff. Yep, things that a lot of people don't think about. Yeah,
it'll break you, and that was one of the things that the U.S. Navy was a lot better at, was going a little bit farther in when it comes to planning. We're gonna think about it 20 years from now, not just can we get it out there and say we got it out there.
Right. So now, sorry, it was my fault getting us off track a little bit. You wanted to talk about India, the Arihant. So they're building, what I read, what was it, 4? They're building 4 of these right now, right? Or they're planning to have 4 total. 1 active right now, and you said the second one is in the water. maybe operational by 2021.
Yeah, like that's the plan. And as far as I understand, they're supposed to build 4 of them. I don't know what's going on with the other 2. I'm assuming they're being built right now. I haven't heard anything otherwise, but yeah, that's the plan. They're going to have 4 of them, which is going to be pretty crazy for a country, because China, you got China and America and Russia, and that's it. And now you got a 4th player out there that's going to be, because what are they going to do with it? What are they going to do with the other 2? Because they're obviously going to put one next to Pakistan. Obviously, they're going to put one next to China. Obviously, where are they going to put the other 2? Are they going to put one next to America just in case? Well, that's pretty crazy.
Right?
Nobody's really done that before.
Right. Well, usually the rule of thumb is you have a 1-to-3 ratio, right? So for every 3 ballistic missile submarines you have, you can expect at any given time, one of them will be out on deployment. The other one will probably be in port. And then a third one could possibly be in maintenance or being overhauled or whatever. So with 3 submarines, you can expect one of them to be on deployment.
Right,
so I
yeah,
guess
definitely.
4 kind of guarantees they'll at least always, at any given time, they'll always at least have one, right?
Or possibly 2. If you
One
have
or two,
if you have
right.
if you have 2 out, 1 rotating, and then you have 1 in dry dock doing maintenance. But you got to have a good maintenance system. It takes a lot to do that, obviously. And India hasn't shown a whole lot of promise when it comes to not having to force your submarines into a dry dock. They left the damn hatch open and messed up the engine room. So
maybe you can tell them about that. Right. So
I don't want to call it India, and I hate to say, I don't want to be the guy that talks about it again, but yeah, I mean, they left a hatch open in the engine room and flooded the engine room out, so it caused a lot of damage, and they were out for, I think you were the one that told me they were out for like 10 months. They were out for a while.
10 months to repair, yeah. And this was on the Arihant. This is on that brand new ballistic missile submarine they built.
Yeah, the one that they have. So it's, they're going to treat that one like that. And I'm not saying that's the deal. Maybe they learned from it, because that's what we did. We learned from the Thresher and Scorpion and all the things that we did, because we had big giant accidents. So it is what it is. Maybe that's what it took to take them to realize that they got to have procedures and checklists, and they got to force accountability. I don't know. I have no idea what came out of it. Hopefully they become a lot stronger force, because they don't have to deal with stupid shit like leaving a hatch open. So a hatch out of everything. There's 1,000 things you gotta check, and a hatch just blows my damn mind.
So you know what I found interesting? I was just thinking about right now. Is the Arihant? That's the class. Is it called? I'm sorry, I should know this. Is it called the first boat of the class? Is it called the Arihant too?
Yeah, so the class and the ship are both, or the boat are both named the same thing.
Okay. Usually what happens is if you're building your first ever ballistic missile submarine, you're going to build one special one, right? As like a test bed, as a platform. Did they ever do anything like that? Or are they just starting right out with building a whole class of them?
No, as far as I understand, I think this is the first one. Like, I'm not a huge history buff when it comes to like India, but as far as I understand, this is the first. Now, there are countries that do that, like North Korea. Obviously, they have the Simpo class that just it's a single shot. I don't even think it really works anymore. It's probably just a test. They say it's a test bed, but we haven't seen it test anything. So yeah, and America did the same thing. The UK kind of tested and did the same thing. So it's the best way to do it. It's like any platform. Throw one out there. It's like the Seawolf. Throw one out there, make it crazy, see if it works. If it does, then use it. If not, then, kind of revamp it or do something better. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a little different than normal. I guess they're confident enough in the boat, I guess. So then you were talking about their missiles. I guess that's the next important part. So this boat is going to be carrying either 12 of the K-15 submarine launched ballistic missile. And that's the shorter range missile, 750 kilometers, according to sources here.
Yeah, that's short. That's cruise missile range. That's pretty crazy to be a ballistic missile. Yeah.
So it's interesting if you actually look at the air. India really has to deter two countries. They have Pakistan, which you mentioned they've always had tensions with. They're not the greatest of friends. And then you have China, who again, they're at odds with. So they have to deter both. And that shorter range missile, that K-15, that 750 kilometers doesn't give you much range, does it? So if I looked at it on Google Maps, if you park this submarine right off the coast of Pakistan, literally right off the coast, it could only cover the southern half of Pakistan. So it would not be able to reach Islamabad or anything else. Just pretty much southern Pakistan, right?
Right, yeah. And in normal ballistic missile submarines like the US, they go thousands of kilometers and miles. So that's a super duper short one.
So, and then also, I mean, even if you park it over in the Bay of Bengal, it really can't reach anything in China, 750 kilometers. So it has another missile it can also carry, a newer missile, the K4. They can only carry 4 of those missiles, but that one has a much longer range, 3,500 kilometers.
Yeah, definitely, and that covers the whole country. So
right,
you got all of Pakistan with that thing. So yeah, that's a huge advantage for them. It's cool to have a ballistic missile submarine, but when you can't target everything you need to, what's the point? That's why we built so many of them. That's why we had the 41 for Freedom. We just had them everywhere, so we could reach everybody. We had them all over the place. Who knows where we had them? So
did we ever
without
get
the missiles to do that?
Did we ever even get to that number? I remember that with Ronald Reagan, right? Trying to get to 41 ballistic missile submarines. I don't think they ever actually reached 41 operational boomers or
no. I don't think they were operational at the same time. No, but there was just kind of that stint of those 5 classes where it's just 41 of them. But yeah.
Anyway, so that K4, 3,500 kilometers. I looked at that one as well. If you were to place it right off the northern tip, almost right up to northern tip of the Bay of Bengal, right off the coast of Bangladesh, you can cover all of Pakistan and you can reach Beijing with that then. But the only downside with that is, like I said, you only get 4 of them. And that's not really enough. I don't know. Is that enough to really deter China or Pakistan at the same time?
Well, it's hard to tell because everybody's governments acts completely different. People value their people differently, and when shit gets going, who knows what they even value. So it's really difficult to say, because what you could do with 4 thermonuclear weapons is completely devastating, because they're going to have multiple warheads on them. I'm sure they're going to cover more than just one place. They're going to take a huge amount of people out. I mean, let's say you took 2 million out per missile if they actually connected and they worked. I mean, that's huge. That's 8 million people. That's a lot of people,
Right.
So it's is that going to deter you? You got 1 billion other people. Is that even a deal? Because what if you're just looking at numbers? Like, it just really depends on how you look at it. Everybody's got their own value of life, and deterrence is really based on that. If you're going to come in and just punch somebody in the face and that scares everybody, well, that's going to deter us from punching you back. But if you don't give a shit if that guy gets punched, who cares? Yeah, you punch that dude, I don't give a shit. I'm going to punch your whole family. It just escalates. So that's the kind of the odd part of deterrence, right? That chaos part of it.
It is. And deterrence, it's such an interesting topic too. You can really get into a lot and really get lost down a rabbit's hole. There's so much to it than just the basic surface. I have nuclear weapons. If you attack me, I'm going to attack you, and we're both going to lose. It's a lot deeper than that. It's a really interesting topic.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, 4 of them. There's going to be a lot more than 4 vital targets you want to hit in China. So if they build 4 of these boats, and say at best they have 2, maybe even 3 operational at the same time, that gives you 12 targets at best with that K4 missile. Yeah,
and you got to hope that hits. Like, who even knows that's going to work? If that thing is brand new, if they only got 4 of them, more than likely it's not very tested. So who even knows if it's going to connect? Because it's easy to get a missile up. It's a lot harder to hit the ground with it. So who knows if it's even going to work, so give them a 1 out of 2 chance. You only got 2,
Yeah. And that's the incredible thing too, the accuracy of these long range missiles. So the longer range you get, I mean, you have to calculate in, there's so many variables, including the rotation of the Earth. Obviously, in the time that it takes for this missile to get to its target, the Earth will have rotated. So the spot you were targeting is not going to be there anymore. There's a lot to it. I just really quickly picked it up I pulled it up on here on Wikipedia, and it says near zero CEP. I don't know if I believe that one, Wikipedia. So if anyone doesn't know, the CEP is the circular air probability, or circular air probable. And what that means is 50% of the time it will fall within that radius of the number it gives you. So a lot of times it'll say, for example, 50 meters CEP. And again, so if you fire 10 of them, 5 of them should fall within 50-meter radius of that point. The other 50% will fall outside of it, and there's a diminishing number of how far it's going to be away. But it's one way they judge the accuracy of weapons and missiles. And even if you go to the gun range and you're shooting, they'll talk about CEP. But that's one of the challenges when you're talking about long-range ballistic missiles.
Yeah, just missiles in general. You're putting some kind of explosive on some kind of tube with an explosive in it, and you're gonna guide this explosive with an explosive and explode people with it. It's just ridiculous, man.
Yeah,
it's amazing that they can do this now, and we're still not shooting V2s at each other and just lighting rockets and letting them fly. It's being being on that submarine and seeing what the Tomahawk can do. That thing is it's when it's $1 million. Every time we shoot one of those, and you hear about the John Warner shooting those things, they were $1 million a piece. But
more
shit,
than
man, they are worth it. Like when you can shoot a missile from underneath the water, 500 kilometers, 500 miles, whatever it is, and you can hit within 3 millimeters. Oh, jeez, are you kidding me? That's crazy, man. Like it. You see, like you can see the sat images of when we were doing airstrikes on that airbase, and you can see them. I mean, they are dead perfect on top of those, because what they'll do is they'll put the airplanes underneath those those like concrete covers, and so they're just dead center on those covers. Boom, and they just go through and blow up the airplane. Boom, 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 and they were perfect. I mean, you couldn't find one that missed. I mean, maybe it went way off, but generally they fall apart if they're going to miss. But that's amazing.
So you're talking about Shayrat, right? Shayrat in Syria a couple years ago.
Yeah. I think that's what they attacked. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So they fired 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles in that strike. Supposedly they were originally going to fire 60. I guess one of them failed before it was launched. I believe they had a problem getting it spun up or getting it ready to be launched. So they fired 59. And then the U.S. admitted that one of them failed shortly after launch. So 58 of them then hit their targets. Russia almost instantly came out. I think they said only 23 hit, and they were not sure where the other 36 went. They said that almost instantly. Not sure how
that always happens.
That. Right.
That always happens. It's always going to be, we don't know, but you got half of whatever you said it was. So we're just going to make some shit up. But
and then that's the interesting.
We're not going to give you what you said.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part. So like you were saying, you can pull it up right now. You can go on Google Maps, Google Earth, either one, and they have an image of Shayrat now. And like you were saying, you can look and actually count these individual impact sites and where they hit these hardened aircraft shelters. And again, like you were just saying, the accuracy is incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah,
they're hitting right in the very center of these things.
Dead center, and they're perfect circles. It's crazy, dude. Like they're so good. Like it's what we talk about on the subreddit is it's like the ad cap. I mean, that thing is just so good at this point. It is so damn good that you're just not going to get away from it. There's just no way. It doesn't matter, man, at this point. If we shoot an ad cap at you and it's the new mods, oh, you're not getting away, man. It's just not going to happen. That thing is that damn good. And the Tomahawks, it's right there with it.
Yeah, and it's incredible. You really, so again, you read a lot about this stuff on the internet or Jane's. I have all the books here. Usually, like you said, they're all the older ones because the new ones are several $1,000s. But yeah, James, if you're listening, feel free to send me some of the new ones. But yeah, it's incredible. So you read these numbers, 1,000-mile range, right, for the Tomahawk, and I think they say the official number is 2 or 5. I think it depends on what variant of the Tomahawk. 2 or 5 meter CEP. But again, if you look at the imagery, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will make sure I put in some of these images here so you can look at it. They are within 1 or 2 meters, or less than that, or probably a meter of the very center of these hardened aircraft shelters. So it's crazy to think that these missiles are flying several hundred miles and hitting a target within a meter or 3 feet. I don't know. It really blows my mind when you really think about it.
And that's just the cruise missiles, right? Like the United States could literally, so to give you a better representation of what that means. Imagine the USS Hampton pulls into the Gulf of Mexico and launches a cruise missile, and it could fly all the way to Chicago and hit your window, and it's not going to miss. Like, it's going to hit your fucking window. And that's incredible. From the Gulf of Mexico all the way to Chicago. Like, and that's just one. We could do 12 just out of that one submarine, and we got like 50-something of them. It's wild. And that's just the VLS. You can torpedo launch those things. So now you're looking at 40 of them. And then throw the SSGNs and throw another 152. Oh, man, those things are just... We are a crazy bunch of people.
So Russia has their own version of the Tomahawk, and it's called the Caliber. Well, actually, it gets a little confusing. So there's a 3M54 caliber, and there's a 3M14, and I had a hard time keeping these straight. The 3M54 is an anti-ship missile variant of it, and then the 3M14 is the land attack, so like the Tomahawk cruise missile. And then when they call it the Caliber, that's the domestic missile they have and they use. So there's a 3M54 caliber, and there's a 3M14 caliber, and then the Club. You'll hear about that missile sometime. It's the same thing, except they call it the Club when it's an exported. So when they sell it overseas to different countries. So again, you have the 3M54 Club and then the 3M14 Club, which are the anti-ship missile and the land attack missile, respectively. Anyway, yeah, they can launch them out of submarines as well, and it's similar in, I think the newest version is similar or close in range, at least, to the Tomahawk. I'm not sure about the accuracy. I think they claim it to have a 2 to 5 meter CEP as well. It'd be interesting to see, though. I'm wondering how accurate that is.
Yeah, it's difficult to say when other countries come out, or when any country really comes out with numbers. It's unless you can actually see the video or see proof of it. It's more than likely bullshit.
I don't want to sound biased, and I know this is going to sound biased, but Russia, it's kind of interesting. So we're talking about the Tomahawk and their version of the Tomahawk, the 3M14. They claim that it has the 2 to 5 meter CEP. So it's already supposedly extremely accurate. This is stuff that they say. They say it's very accurate. It has a very long range. It's a very advanced missile. Everything's great about it. But then at the same time, though, they recently... Okay, so let me rewind a little bit. So during the last Syria strike that the U.S. and different French and the British launched missiles at a few different sites in Syria, they were able to reportedly recover an intact U.S. Tomahawk cruise missile. That was fine. It supposedly failed, and they said that they have it intact, and they're going to use that stuff and use the guidance and use the stuff on the missile to improve their missiles then. Well, the reason why I think it's a little skeptical of their claim of having their 3M14 have a 2 to 5 meter CEP is because if it already is that good, then why would they be using a U.S. Tomahawk to improve it? If it's already at the same level as Tomahawk, how can you take Tomahawk and improve it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh, yeah. It almost sounds like they're kind of backtracking, like, oh, okay, so maybe it wasn't really that accurate. But with this missile, we are going to obviously make it that accurate. But, I mean, come on now. Like, what are the chances that the thing's intact enough that you can even use it? I mean, those things aren't designed to just fall out of the sky and dig into the dirt. I mean, this isn't the 50s. These aren't like stupid bombs, you know? Like, they're designed to handle themselves if some shit goes down. So I find that super duper hard to believe.
So yeah, it's confusing. I'm not saying that this is certain or I have any evidence of this. It just seems kind of weird that they would say that, no, our missiles are great, they're perfect, they have great guidance, they have long range, they're advanced, but they're just as good as the Tomahawk, but we're going to take a Tomahawk and we're going to use the Tomahawk to improve our missiles. Well, if they're exactly the same, then you wouldn't be able to improve your own missile with it, would you?
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah. And even if just because you find some treasure doesn't mean you're going to turn anything out of it. So
that brings us back to, I guess we could talk about you a little bit. Were you ever on? So you were on a Virginia class that had the VLS. And the VLS, if you don't know, it's that vertical launch system where they can fire these Tomahawk cruise missiles out and up and hit land targets while submerged, right?
Well, I was on an LA class. I wasn't on a Virginia. I was on this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I was on a Flight 3. I was on the 767, which is pretty close. The Texas was when they started. I think this Texas was 773. Jeez, don't get me picking numbers. I'm not good with numbers and names. But we were only like maybe 7 or 8 boats away from the Virginia class. So my boat was definitely one of the best, and we had an awesome setup. You can always tell an American submarine is amazing to be on because it has an RO system. So if you have a evaporator system, you're trying to evaporate water to make water, and it sucks, man. But an RO system is amazing, and it's really easy. It's a lot easier to live on that boat. So it's just those little things, and I can't really talk about the actual advances when it comes to the attack defense part of the boat, however you want to call it. But they were super advanced. So we had the VLS, but I don't know. Were you going to ask me a question about VLS? Sorry, I was kind of ranting there for a second.
No problem. Yeah, so I think I mixed up and said Virginia. LA class, if the ones you were on had the VLS, but they can also fire Tomahawk out of the torpedo tubes, like you said earlier. Did you guys ever launch any Tomahawk cruise missiles while you were on board? Or even if they did, would you know? Because you were a mechanic, right?
Well, yeah. So the mechanics on American submarines are broken down into 3 categories. So you have the nuke mechanics. So they're the guys that handle the propulsion and the reactor. And then you have the conventional mechanics. They also call them A-gangers. And that's what I was for the first 4 years I was in. And so they take care of pretty much everything that's not the reactor, and anything that's not dealing with weapon system specific. So they don't do any maintenance on like torpedo tubes. And then you have the torpedomen that take care of those. So they take care of all the weapon systems. So I was a torpedoman. So for the last 2 years I was there when I cross rated. So I was part of the loading crew. I mean, I was the TMOW. So yeah, I mean, I was you can shoot stuff from the torpedo room, but you're supposed to shoot weapons from fire control, so up in control. So we don't actually like push buttons to shoot stuff. Usually we can, but they actually push buttons up there, so it's like command that's in command, not the guy in the torpedo room. So
interesting. Okay, but were you ever on board when they were fired then?
So Tomahawks, yeah. So
yes,
I can't get like too specific, but we did a lot of testing, and I have seen Tomahawks shot, and they are amazing, and they were just as accurate as you've seen recently, and that was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I mean, so if you want to just look at Tomahawk launches, or you look at like surface type launches, missile launches from submarines, they get a lot of attention. So like the John Warner, because you can see shit from satellites. Like there's no hiding it really. Once that missile goes up, everybody knows it's there. So they get a lot of attention. So anytime you see missile launches from submarines, they always like I said, get a lot of attention. So if you haven't seen it, more than likely it hasn't happened. But there's a lot of testing that happens. You got to test those things. It's like the torpedoes. Right. You got to shoot those things multiple times to make sure they work before you put them in a battle ready spot, because what are the odds that thing was just made bad or had bad quality or whatever it was? I mean, it's totally possible. So you got to test that thing over and over and over and over again. And you can't necessarily do that with Tomahawks. You can't like shoot a Tomahawk and then go pick it up and reuse it like you can a torpedo. But yeah, I mean, I would be willing to bet almost every submarine was probably shooting Tomahawks at one point just to test it to make sure that it works. And now you're seeing us go backwards and using harpoons, man. It's yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's interesting. They had that during RIMPAC.
Yeah, you had the Olympia shooting the harpoon. We were looking at photo. I mean, it was crazy. We were looking at the photos and we were like, "What is that thing?" Like nobody could figure out what it was. And so a couple of the old guys on the Discord server were like, well, that's a harpoon. Like, no, it's not. Why would they do that? That doesn't even make any sense. We haven't loaded those things in, I don't know, 15 years. And sure enough, that's
real quick,
saw it hit the racine.
For people who don't know, the harpoon is an anti-ship missile. It's used to sink enemy ships. It originally could be launched from submarines, U.S. submarines, but that capability was taken off in the early 2000s, I believe, right?
Yeah, because a harpoon's a lot slower, it's a lot smaller, it's not as explosive. Like there's compare that to the Tomahawk,
old missile
that replaced it, and it's a huge difference. I mean, the TASM, the one that actually kills the ships, it's significantly better than the harpoon is, but it's significantly more expensive. And so
the TASM is just a Tomahawk anti-ship missile, TASM,
right?
But they got rid of that though. They don't use TASM anymore.
I mean, you can the capability is definitely there. You just don't see them. There's no point. Like what America's gotten really good at is we're pretty realistic. We pretty much know that some shit's not going to go down. So you're not going to see a lot of TASMs loaded on submarines. You're going to see TLAMs, because what's realistic? We're going to be striking Syria, or we're going to be shooting missiles at some person in Venezuela, or who knows what's going to happen in the future. So the TLAMs are just a lot more versatile because you can attack land targets, and it's a whole lot less crazy to the world than taking a ship out. Like you saw the Kerch Strait when Russia went after those little Ukrainian patrol boats, and it's crazy. Like you can't just like shoot at ships, but you can shoot at land targets.
You can ram into it though, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you can shoot at land targets all day. I mean, you see Israel. I mean, it's every day. It almost seems like Israel. Oh, man. Just yesterday they were launching stuff against the Gaza Strip, and land targets are just easier to do.
Yeah, to be honest, that's the one thing I usually do not do. I don't do current events, because all this stuff going on with Israel and Gaza, or even India and Pakistan, the I don't know what you call it, the fog of war, and there's just so much false information out there. So I don't know if you were following this whole India-Pakistan. I think I was talking to you a little bit on the Discord server. But there's so much false information, especially on Twitter, by just nationalists on each side. So people who are really pro-India claiming that they shot down a Pakistani F-16, or Pakistan saying that they shot down all these Indian aircraft, and you really just do not know what is true, what's not true. But that's just another side thing.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like propaganda, it isn't a legal thing, but everybody plays some type of propaganda with information. So, but
yeah, you're right. With TASM, or at least, so they are going to be reintroducing that, at least the new, they call it the maritime capable Tomahawk, and I think we're going to see that with the rise of China. because before that, we never faced really a country with any serious navy that we had to deal with.
Whew, man, yeah, China's they're getting it. I'll send you a photo of the recent shipyard. It's something that came across online, and it's a picture of their shipyard. It's like 15 ships that they're building. It's crazy, man. Like they are getting it, and the South China Sea is going to get crazy. The Arctic was where we really started to kind of push a new water area recently, but you can't really battle up there, right? You can't get surface ships up there, but the South China Sea is just wide open, man, and people are just building stuff in the middle of nowhere, and so you're seeing radar sites pop up and all this new stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be the naval crazy ground. It's when you hear about airplanes buzzing each other, you're gonna see a lot of naval groups buzzing each other and getting super close to each other and bumping each other, and it's gonna get wild out there because they're not gonna slow down anytime soon, and so they're gonna keep pushing.
Yeah, we keep seeing that with U.S. ships cutting through. Is it called the Strait of Taiwan? I think that's actually what they call it. In between Taiwan and mainland China. That really upsets China there, but the U.S. will send a few ships going through there, or even just passing through the islands they're building down there in the South China Sea, which is just incredible. I mean, they're building islands out in the middle of the ocean, just dumping sand.
Yeah, they are land movers. They like if there's ever going to be like a future video game where you give a country a bonus, China's going to be land moving. Like they are moving mountains. They're digging out bases. Like there's underground submarine bases and stuff now, man. Like they are moving a lot of land mass to make. They're making a whole new island chain out there so they can control that area, and
like we were saying, it's really weird because it's so segregated in a sense. They just call it the Chinese internet. It's like an entire different thing from our internet, the internet we know and love, that you're listening to this on, that we're communicating on. Everything we experience, they have an entire separate thing. And it's very hard to get any of this information, even just basic stuff like pictures of some of their ships or footage. It's strange. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and it goes both ways because, like, you can go online and see if your stuff is actually blocked by the Chinese, but the submarine subreddit is regularly blocked, and it seems to kind of go on and off, which I think is weird. I don't know if maybe it's picking up, maybe random posts and only blocking certain things. I'm not sure, but yeah, it seems like they actually block the subreddit and a lot of like OSINT stuff where all that stuff can actually come back.
Well, I'm not sure if YouTube is. I think for some reason I want to say that it is actually blocked in China. I could be wrong, but yeah, with a country of 1.5 billion people, and when I can look at my views and I can see what countries, how many views from each country. They have 1.5 billion people, but I think I've only had a couple thousand views from China. It's crazy. Yeah, it's just so separated off. You think that would be a large percentage of my views, but yeah, so they block it. I'm pretty sure it's blocked for the average person. So it sounds like it's the same thing with Reddit.
You're going to see the same thing really soon with Russia too. They're trying to push the same thing where they want to have that same type of really segregated internet system where they can block in and out. I saw that,
yeah.
It's. I mean, I'm not trying to tout that you should censor people, but just trying to be on the other spectrum is you're not getting into that thing, and you can see it. Like just me and you, we're gonna eventually in the future we're gonna talk about that black hole of information. It's because they can block not just going out but coming in. We don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and it's weird. We talk about the Cold War a lot, right? A lot of people like to compare what's going on now with the Cold War, but it is so different. I mean, the internet did not exist back then. It's gotten to it's such a weird thing where you or I can communicate with a random person in Russia, right? Like right now, if we wanted to. And during the Cold War, you did not have anything even close to that. I guess you had phones, but just the amount of information you can share and go back and forth, it just adds a whole new dynamic to it. So I guess, yeah, it would be, from China's perspective, or if Russia ever did that, it would be a good way to try to cut that off and almost, in a sense, bring it back to how it was during the Cold War, not allowing your citizens to view this stuff, or not allowing American citizens or other country to be able to see what you're doing or what's going on inside of your country.
Yeah, and we've China and Russia have proven time and time and time again, when you can get that information, it's super valuable. Russia and China don't innovate. They just take information from other people and then they make it for dirt cheap, Even Russia didn't even really make anything, but that's what China did, and that's why they got super rich, is they were like, well, we're going to do more than just steal military secrets. We're going to steal everything. We're going to steal how to make natural gas pipelines and how to do everything. But, yeah, sorry for my little rant.
But you were right, though. So even we think about Russia and China being pretty close. The relations between the two countries are pretty good. But we're seeing problems with them. So, for example, Russia is getting upset because they're selling them aircraft, different versions of the Sukhoi fighter jets and just everything. And China's taking them and building their own under license, but then they're also taking them and building illegal versions of them. They're doing things with them that Russia did not originally say to do. And then the problem also is that China is building these under license, but then they're taking them and exporting them to other countries. So they're selling these fighter jets, for example, to other countries that Russia might have originally been able to sell to them. So they're almost stealing customers from Russia. So I think in the future, that could be a problem. Right now, China needs Russia to the extent where they're still up and coming. They still can't quite build everything themselves in terms of a lot of these advanced fighter jets and surface-to-air missile systems. And Russia needs China because it's a major source of income and it's a good ally against the U.S. But I think there are some rifts there that could become larger as time goes on. Once China starts to be able to do this stuff themselves in the near future, we could see a change there in the relationship between the two.
Yeah, and I think India goes the same way. They're buying stuff from Russia, and they just signed a new contract for, I think it was like 3 more, or no, it's at least 1 more Akula. I know for sure, class submarine, which is, well, what the hell, man? Like, we're supposed to be on the same side. Why are you buying weapons from the other countries? What are they supposed to buy? They're obviously not going to buy a Virginia because we don't sell submarines. So what are they going to buy? Are they going to buy something from Europe? Like, the A-26 is great. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff to that. There's you're going to buy a German submarine like everybody else. Every country in South America has a German submarine. They're all German submarines with the exception of Brazil's new Scorpion. So, you're going to buy another copy of something else that everybody else has. So you're not really going to put yourself in a better situation. So, what do? You got to play with ties. Yeah, man, it's a crazy game out there, man. It's the best game of chess. And I think that's why it's super interesting and why, you get into it and I get into it. No matter what our lives are, we get tied up in this crazy game of chess. It's amazing.
And that's interesting. I think kind of brought up an interesting point is the U.S. does not sell any of these. So Russia will sell a lot of this stuff. And the U.S. will sell F-15s and F-16s, F-35s. But when it comes to submarines and for the most part, naval ships like aircraft carriers, obviously, that's different though. But the Arleigh Burke class destroyer, they don't sell any of these things to other countries or submarines at all.
Yeah, we never sell.
You have any thoughts on that?
We never sell the same level, from what I understand. I'm not like a naval historian by trade, but from what I understand, we never sell like the same level. So you're not gonna get a Virginia class. You're not gonna get a new carrier, right? We always sell stuff that's kind of like obsolete, but Russia, right. Like Russia takes it like a step further. They'll lease it to you. Like it's like just leasing a car. Like they're gonna take it back from you when you're done. it's which is huge, right? Because if you're gonna lease a nuclear powered submarine, we're gonna go through. we're going to deal with the infrastructure. All you got to do is just not wreck the thing. We'll build it. We'll deal with discarding the reactor and all that other stuff, but you get to play with it. That is huge. And it's not only that, but it's nuclear powered. They're not just doing this with the kilos. They're not doing this with their SSKs, with their diesel submarines. They're doing it with their big bad boys. That's where things gets crazy, right? Like Germany does it with their submarines. They'll sell their same level that they have now, but they're never going to get above that level because they always sell everything they have. So it's that devil you got to trade out with.
Yeah, it's interesting. And that's one thing I guess we didn't cover is with India and Pakistan. So Pakistan has a few submarines of their own. I believe am I wrong here? I think H.I. Sutton sent you that link, or you had a link from him, an image showing what boats each country has. But they have two of those Augusta 70, and they're a little bit smaller. They fire torpedoes, and I think they have the Exocet anti-ship missile. And then they have three of the larger Augusta 90 class submarines. They're a little bit larger, and they can fire that Babur, B-A-B-U-R cruise missile, which can fit a nuclear warhead on it.
Yeah, essentially any cruise missile could probably put a warhead on at this point. We've been doing it since the 50s. Right. That's where we started. So that's kind of a rule of thumb. So, yeah.
So that's that's one aspect I think though that a lot of people don't think of when you talk about the nuclear situation between Pakistan and India. You think of ballistic missiles or dropping nuclear bombs from aircraft, but yeah, they can fire these things from cruise missiles and submarines.
Right, exactly.
And then India with the Akula, like you were talking about, I'm not sure whatever came from it. I remember hearing about them having that club. So like I was talking about that 3M14 and the 3M45, they call it the club when it's exported. So that's what India would have on that Akula, the club cruise missile. And I don't know if they were actually sold it to them. I believe they did, but they were not supposed to originally because of a treaty. I forget the name of it. The MTTR or something like that. It has an actual limit of the range of weapons that you can export to other countries. I want to say it's like 300 or 500 kilometers range, and that club exceeds that. But anyway, that can also fit a nuclear warhead on that as well. So that's another thing when it comes to India and Pakistan submarines.
Which is also why it's so crazy when they talk about low yield weapons. Well, low yield means low size and small size, so you can put it on whatever you want. So it really changes the game because we can start putting nukes back on Tomahawks.
Right. I wonder how difficult that really is. I wonder how. It's probably more complicated than just taking the warhead out, the conventional warhead out, and placing a new one in, right? I wonder how much work there really is to it. It's interesting. I might have to look that one up.
Well, what's really interesting is we've already done it, so it won't take much. We used to have these things and we got rid of them, so going back to them wouldn't be much at all. Maybe a couple days. Who knows?
Well, that's the thing going on with INF. So INF, this is not directly. It doesn't actually directly have anything to do with INF, but the U.S. got rid of those Tomahawk cruise missiles with nuclear warheads on them, launched from ships. I think it was 2003 or sometime around then. Am I right? Or was it even more recent than that?
No, I think it was a little bit more recent. Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah. But with INF ended, they're talking about that might be one response the U.S. might do is put nuclear warheads back on the ship and sub-launched Tomahawk, which is actually was never even banned by INF. Those only had to do with land-launched cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. But anyway, getting a little off track there. I think you brought up one interesting thing we could talk about is when we were talking about the South China Sea, all these ships in close proximity, the possibility of a collision or ramming. We've seen a few of those going back to in the Cold War too. Even some submarines. I don't know off the top of my head, but there are some accidents between the U.S. and the Soviet Union where these submarines would actually ram into each other, whether it was on purpose or not. But if you want to talk about, I think we could talk about the Fitzgerald and the John McCain. We had an interesting conversation about that. So for those who don't know, those are two destroyers, U.S. destroyers, where over the last few years they have crashed into accidentally civilian ships.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, you say accidentally. I mean, that's arguable. Not doing your job, is that an accident? I don't know. There's a lot of argument to why those warships ran into a giant cargo ship. It
wasn't on purpose, at least.
Well, no, obviously, there's no U.S. Navy sailor that's gonna take a ship and ram it into something. But you could be so negligent, and you can be in command of people that are so ignorant that they ram into something. And so, yeah, I mean, we could argue about that all day. I mean, who's at fault at that? It goes all the way up and down. It's a really difficult argument. I think that's a whole podcast in general. It's just, arguing about just the last collisions.
Yeah. Well, I guess really quick, though, I thought it was really interesting. You were telling me they were using Garmin GPS.
Oh, yeah. So, man, I wish I had it pulled up and I could tell you. It'll be a lookup for me. I'll have to post it on my Twitter account for sure.
Was that the Reddit, the AMA?
Yeah. So the AMA, his name is T. Christian Miller, and he did an article for ProRepublica, and it is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, and even if you don't like reading articles, it's great, man. It is great from top to bottom, and it really details how ridiculous this thing was. I mean, they were sending emails through Gmail. I mean, they were using over the shelf radar systems, and they were using Garmin GPS trackers. It's crazy. Like, are you serious?
Garmin GPS.
We're supposed to be the best of the best, and we're using fucking Garmin. I don't even use Garmin, man. Like, I haven't used a Garmin thing in 10 years. I'm not trying to like shit on Garmin. They could be a cool a sponsor, and I love Garmin, and that's probably why the ship was using Garmin, because it's the best in the market. I don't know, but
yeah, these are like what, $1.5 billion ships. These destroyers, $1.5 billion, and they resorted to using. This guy reveals here that they're using Garmin for GPS navigation,
which is crazy,
Gmail,
right? Like
Gmail. To communicate.
You got to understand, let's look at just the GPS, right? The GPS system is designed to allow U.S. Navy warships to use it at a time of war, right? Like the U.S. Navy can literally shut off GPS, right? We turned it on at one point. We can always turn it off, but our ships can still use those. Well, if you're fucking using a Garmin GPS, you're not going to get that. So if GPS has to get taken down because we go into a time of war, well, now the ship's lost, and it doesn't know where it is.
Use that Garmin, right?
Now they're using, celestial navigation. If they don't even know how to use that, like, what are the odds that they even know how to navigate by the stars? I'm willing to bet you they probably didn't. If you look at the list of this shit that they didn't know, I'm willing to bet you that's somewhere on there.
Hopefully, yeah. I believe I talked to somebody in the Navy, and they said they still do teach it. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Oh yeah, you have to learn that. You have to learn that. Yeah, it's super basic. But But there was a lot of basics they didn't know. There's a huge. I mean, I think he actually did. Miller actually did another. I think he did a different, or maybe it was part of the same one where he put like a top 20 list, or just a big list of just ridiculous shit that they were doing. Like, and that's where I learned about the Garmin and everything else. So you have to find that one. I don't know where that one is, but yeah, I mean, that's crazy, dude. Like, and that's how you have a multi-million-dollar warship drive right into the side of a cargo ship, because it's just a trash fire, of bullshit.
So yeah, we'll post the link on here so everyone can see it. And if you're watching on YouTube, hopefully we have the individual things listed here. But so he says it was an untested team. The captain at the time was asleep. It was a 26-year-old officer, had never navigated at night before, turned the wrong way when it saw that it was about to hit or collide with this container ship, turned the wrong direction and actually turned into it. The crew was not even qualified on the Aegis missile defense system. Again, it says, Gmail on ships instead of secure communications. I guess it failed repeatedly. The radars were not working properly. I guess I had to keep pushing a button over and over and over again just to have the screen refreshed.
God damn, that's crazy, man.
It's insane. And this is just, the only reason we know about this is because an accident happened. So I think it's really interesting if this is going on and the only reason we know about it is because there was an incident. You wonder how common it is, or how many other ships, or how many other problems there are like this.
Well, and see, that's what separates you from having a world-class program is you're not reacting. You're ahead of the game. Submarines went through it. We lost Thresher, we lost Scorpion. And they had to say, like, look, we can't just be leaving strainers in airlines and not letting these guys emergency blow, because that's ridiculous. Like, we have to make sure that this shit works and it's not garbage. Like, we have to hold ourselves to a quality standard. And yeah, I mean, it's just, if you don't, you get what you get. You get the quality that you put into it. And when you got guys that are underneath water with a nuclear reactor and they got nuclear weapons, possibly, you got to take care of your equipment and your people.
Well, I know there's going to be a lot of people saying, you're biased against the U.S. or Russia. They probably said I was biased against Russia earlier. Now they're going to say I'm biased against the U.S. But I think it's important to talk about things like this, not because I'm biased against the U.S., but I think issues like this need to be revealed so they can be resolved, right? Like, obviously these issues had probably been going on for a while. Problems with the radar not working or using Gmail. I mean, how long would they have continued using Gmail if this had not happened? Or Garmin?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows, man? And that's you hold your people accountable, and that's how you hold yourself to a standard. If you can't hold your people accountable, which kind of sucks when it comes to secret information and stuff. It's secret, so you can't hold them accountable either. They can say whatever the fuck they want. You just kind of have to believe it because you'll never know. But at the same time, you hold you get to keep your people safe because you don't get to know about ships moving and stuff. So there's a plus and a minus to having that enormous amount of secret information that the Navy has. And you have a downside, and that's now we have this ship out there using fucking Garmin, and those people can't even talk about it. Those people, what are they going to do? Are they going to be whistleblowers? Yeah, good luck with that shit. You're going to be stuck in a fucking Russian embassy for the rest of your life or some shit.
Yeah.
And they're going to obviously kick you out. You're going to lose your entire career that you dedicated X amount of time to. So there's nobody on the ship that's ever going to say anything. And they don't want to, just because they have pride in what they do. They don't want to fucking see people. They don't, you don't want somebody to come into your house when it looks like shit. So you have to kind of roll with the punches. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shitstorm of nobody really knows what the hell's going on. And you have to have, the Navy Times. You have to have these articles of these captains getting fired. You got to have these articles because it holds us to a standard. It holds us accountable to what we talk about. We can sit here and say we're Captain America all fucking day, but if we don't hold ourselves to that standard, then we ain't shit. We're just talking shit. And we're just every other country in the past that fell apart, just talking a big game. We didn't become great talking a big game. We became great because we were the big game, so
it's a good point.
You have to hold yourself to that standard. You have to have a guy like Miller putting this article out, and he didn't just put an article out. He didn't just dig some shit up. He spent time with his. I'm sure he had a team that helped him. If he didn't by himself, he's a god. But him and his team put this really nice, easy to read thing together, and it's super important, like you say.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And also, I think it is interesting if this is happening with the U.S., who has, I'm not sure specifically with the Navy, but obviously the U.S. military has the largest budget in the world by far. It's three or four times, or maybe it's 2 or 3 times bigger than China. Several times, a whole lot bigger than Russia and every other country. So you wonder if this stuff is happening with the U.S., you got to wonder how many problems like this are happening with Russian ships or even submarines.
Oh, I mean, you just look at the. I mean, you can look at the recent. And if you look at my Twitter page, you have to dig back. I can't just pull them up right now. But there's been, I think, 4 in 2018. There were 4 big fires on ships, not including PD-50 sinking and messing up their carrier.
Right. That was the dry dock with the
when the dry dock
Admiral
sunk.
Kuznetsov was on that sunk.
Right, messed up. The crane fell on top of it. So there was that, and then there was a fire on the back of a kilo that they said was a fucking drill. Which, whatever. What are you guys doing? There's like a black plume of smoke that goes halfway up
was
the
that
atmosphere.
in Vladivostok?
Yeah,
I
it was
remember
on
that one. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Aviation Intel. Tyler Rockaway did a really good story on it, where you could see the pictures of it, and there's a big giant black plume of smoke coming off the back of a surface submarine on a port. Like, what are you guys doing? Just pouring black oil into the water and setting it on fire and putting the fire out? That's ridiculous anyways. So even if your story is true, that's some crazy shit regardless. So, so there was that. And then there was another fire on a surface ship. I think it was one of their icebreakers. So yeah, and they had a few. So I mean, yeah, they've been through some shit at this point, and those are the real dramatic ones because people see them and report them, right?
Right.
Because every Navy ship goes through their shit, man. We had some times where it was rough, and you don't want to go out there and just tell the public everything that's wrong with your stuff because then they get worried, right? We're a machine. We're gonna have a lot of problems. So, but we're not like catching on fire in Norfolk. We're not like Point Loma's not up in smoke at this point because there's some kind of big giant fire on the back of one of their submarines out there. So yeah, it's you could see that they're having some type of issues.
Yeah, I'm sure even China. I'm sure there's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, and with China, they're having like training issues. So they're having, from what like I said, I'm not like super big into like the ground, or I'm a little bit into the air, but I think they were having a lot of like jets crash and a lot of training stuff happening where China's big, they got a lot of money, but they're still brand new in the game.
Exactly.
They have a lot of corruption issues. They have a lot of just training, and they have no vets. They have no wise men
or any real experience in war.
Right. I mean, they're just now getting a lot of time in the air, a lot of time in the water, and they're running into a lot of issues. All this, they're indigenous. A lot of their stuff is all indigenous. So everything they make is all on them and all tested with them, and all that's new. Their entire system is new. People are new. Everything's new.
Especially the aircraft carriers. So it's a thing that takes a lot of trial and error to learn how to use and how to use properly. There's a lot that goes into it. How to operate an aircraft carrier when it comes down to all the crew you need, doing different jobs, make sure it's all running smoothly. There's a lot to it, and that's one thing that they're working through right now.
Yeah, and a lot of steps. Every step is new. So, yeah, it's brand new to put it in the water, and then it's brand new to test it, and then it's brand new to run it, and then it's brand new to put it on a mission, and then it's brand new to put it in its first dry dock. So they don't know what the hell they're doing. And so they're running into issues. And so, okay, this is the first time we get it out of dry dock. Let's not try to sink the fucking dry dock, So, I mean, every step along the way is new, especially with their carriers, because they're just now getting them going. I guess they've had them for a few years now, but I think they're getting ready to put their third one out. They got 3 of them going now, so it's all conventional, but they're still powerhouses.
Yeah, that third one is going to be it's going to be catapult. So they're not going to have that ski ramp anymore. And there are just a few pictures slowly coming out of them constructing it right now. I honestly don't know. Is it nuclear powered or not?
I mean, it could be. It's only a matter of time. I don't see why it wouldn't be. I mean, they got the GDP for it. They have the infrastructure. It's only a matter of time, to be honest. I honestly can't believe it hadn't happened at this point. They pushed so fast and so hard, but maybe one of the things you got to realize about China is they're getting more modernized. So people want safety, people want pay, people don't want corrupt bullshit anymore. They're not just farmers coming in out of the fucking backfields putting your bullshit together.
Right.
So they want better. So, oh man, there's so many variables in China. It's so hard to tell. Plus, nobody knows. I get so random shit from them. I have no idea. It's all guessing.
Yeah, so I did just look it up right now. It is going to be nuclear powered.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So let's see. 7 days now. It's supposed to carry nearly. It's going to be similar in size. It looks like to U.S. supercarriers. Wow. It's going to be interesting.
No ramp, huh? That sucks. That's what sucks about the military is you lose a lot of romanticism with technology. So you lose the ramp. Like submarines don't have periscopes anymore. So you don't have that cool periscope to look around with. I'm going to miss the ramp. Oh. I'm going to miss the ramp.
Yeah. Well, the British still have theirs, so.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be conventional, you kind of have to have the ramp. It's just kind of part of the game, I guess, but.
Right. But there's a lot of drawbacks to a ramp, though. Yeah, with the ramp, from what I understand, is you cannot take off with a full fuel load. You have to have, I think it's like half as much fuel as it can normally take off with. And then also same thing, payload is cut back too. So it cannot carry as much as you could with a catapult.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay.
So there are a lot of drawbacks to it because, it's a very short space to get up and get off into the air. And if it's too heavy, it's not going to be able to do it. It's going to come right back down into the water.
Right, definitely. That's
going to be terrifying. Can you imagine just taking off from an aircraft? I guess just in general, even with a catapult. Because there's been times where the steam power isn't, I forget how they actually say, but it's not calibrated correctly. Every aircraft they launch, they have to calibrate exactly how much power they need to get that aircraft in the air. And every aircraft is different. It's even different depending on what payload they have. So there's been times where they call out cold cat, where the catapult failed and the aircraft just dropped right down into the water. But I can't imagine doing it from a ramp. I mean, you just turn you put the throttle up to 100 and you just hope, you jump off that thing enough to get enough speed before you hit the water.
Yeah, man, that's one of the crazy things about aircraft is they just have to go. Like, there's no stopping. With submarines, yeah, we're crazy because we go underwater, but we can just kind of stop and hang out. You can just literally sit on the bottom and just turn everything off, right? Not these things. You got to go. Like, you're like a shark. Nope. If you don't go, you're going to die. Yeah. So right. I give a lot of props to pilots, and those guys are fucking bananas, man. I don't know how they do it, probably just as much as they don't know how I did what I did. So,
well, I mean, I give you props for that. I don't think I could ever be in a submarine deep underwater. I've actually had nightmares about that. I had a nightmare one time, not long ago, that I had accidentally signed up for the U.S. Navy, and I was put on a submarine, and we were going to be out there for 2-3 months underwater, and there was no way I was getting out of it. I could not do it. I'm a tall guy, 6'2", and I don't like small spaces.
Phew, man, I'm right there with you. I still have those nightmares. So I don't want to go back out there either, man. No, man, that's rough. It's you have that nightmare for a reason. It's not something you want to do. I mean, those guys aren't out there doing that and want to do it. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a few that are crazy as shit and are out there doing it because they love it. But most of them are they're just getting by and they're doing the best they can and doing the shit for their country, and they're grinding and struggling, and they're heroes, man. Just in the fact of how hard they work is crazy. They're 100-hour weeks, whatever crazy ass shit they're doing.
Wow.
And it's yeah, man. Never again. It gives me nightmares. I have nightmares all the time. Like, I'm back in the Navy. Oh, Jesus Christ. I have to pull my dick out in front of somebody and do drug tests again. All this crazy shit. No way, man. There's no way. I don't want to do this shit anymore. No, man.
I've been on a few. The only submarines I've been on are old World War II museums, right? You know, you go through a couple tours of those, and you walk through the tiny, tiny little submarine. And I know they're a lot bigger now, but still, those small spaces, can't do it.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I went down on the Growler, and I had that Reddit AMA interview down on the Growler.
Oh right,
and that thing was tight. Like we actually did it before the Growler opened. I got off the boat. We did our final everything was great, everything's good, and I was like, well, I want to go back down there, and I want to keep going through it. And I got down there, and it was already open, and you're basically stuck down there. You're not going anywhere. You cannot get past other people on that thing. Like it's it's almost a fire hazard. It's crazy. You cannot get out of there. Then you go on like the LA class like I was on, and it's wide enough in the hallways or in the aisleways that you can pass each other, right? But then you go back on the Virginia, and it is super tight again. I mean, they took a lot of that space back out and made it really useful. It almost seems like they got a little loose back in the Cold War days because they were trying to keep up with the typhoons with their freaking saunas and all this crazy ass shit they had. That they were like, okay, we'll actually let you guys walk side by side, Yeah. I don't know, man.
Well, yeah, so I was on a trip to New York City, and I wanted to go see the Intrepid. I got to go on a tour of the Intrepid there, the aircraft carrier. And then I was going to go see the Growler, but the line was way too long. I think they said it was going to be an hour, and we had to be somewhere for lunch later on. But I can imagine, it's got to get pretty packed on there. They only allow a certain number of people on there at a time.
Yeah, and you have to wait because you cannot pass the person in front of you. So you have to wait until they're done looking at whatever the fuck they're looking at. And I was that guy looking at everything, blocking everybody up,
Yeah.
And I felt bad, but, you're in New York City. It is what it is. You're going to be around that many people. You got to be fucking used to it by now. If you don't want to get that line, go out to Seawolf Park in Galveston. You're not going to have no line like that. You can free walk through that thing as much as you want to. So you get what you get. It's part of your community.
Yeah. So we could let them know we have a bunch of people already lined up, right? You've talked to several people that have expressed interest.
I have, and I don't want to spoil too much because I need to actually confirm them for a time and a date. But I have a lot of very, very interesting people that want to interview with us and just talk about military, man. And it really comes down to learning. Like I said, I know a lot about submarines, but there's a lot that I want to learn about. I'm not going to get this stuff from playing video games or reading a Jane's fighting manual or fighting ships. I want to actually talk to experts and people that do the shit all the time and know what they do. And I feel like this is going to be the way to do it, and it's going to be great, man. And I'm super, super duper excited. And this little test that we had really worked out well. So.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and that's why we're all here. I love learning new stuff. I mean, just from talking to you this last month or so, I've learned a lot about submarines. It's one area that I've always been fascinated in, but it's just it's almost its own black hole, right? It's hard to find good information on submarines.
Man, I've been doing it for three or 4 years now. I've been trying to lead the community, and I bet you I know 3%. Let's not even get into the secret stuff. Anything past the 80s, I don't know anything other than what I personally experienced. But, oh man, who knows, man? There's just submarines is a huge black hole. And you want to get into aircraft, you want to get into missiles or torpedoes or nuclear weapons. Holy cow, we could talk all day about nuclear weapons and nuclear power. I mean, man. Yeah, I mean, we that's why I think this podcast has the ability to go for a long time and have a lot of episodes and have a lot of people to interview because we could talk about this endlessly.
Yeah.
By the time we get done with it, it'll be all brand new again.
Yeah, pretty much. So we got a few different journalists lined up, different experts in the field. a few different ex-military, so different people from the Air Force, Navy. I'm not sure if we have anyone from the Army yet lined up. That would be an interesting one. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking to these people too, learning a lot. So.
Yeah, a few internet personalities that are really popular on the internet and stuff like that. Yeah, we have a night, and it's not going to be, I don't want it to ever say anything negative about anybody ever, but we're not going to be like a bunch of PhD holders talking about stuff online. We're going to actually just represent what we can and try to give you guys the knowledge that we understand, and interview the experts that we can. I want to give you both sides. I don't want to try to me and
try to convince anyone of anything, right? Just the facts, just the information.
We're not trying to
different stories.
We're not trying to hear exactly. We're not trying to hear you feed you clickbait. None of that shit.
No,
we're just here to have a good time and try to talk about the military, and the crazy stuff. And we're not going to take one side or the other about deterrence or anything like that. We're just going to try to talk about it as best we can. So,
right, we were talking about that off air. But there's enough people doing that right now. So we promise we will never be that. But
we definitely want to be interesting. We're going to do the best we can to be interesting, not clickbaity.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. It's gonna be a fun ride, guys and girls. Sorry, everybody's included. So I love you guys
I know
all.
My mom will be listening to this, so.
Hey, we got one girl. Hey, that's great.
Can't forget. All right. Well, I'm going to get going. I will talk to you later. Everyone, thank you for listening. And we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, definitely. And Kyle is our guy behind the scenes. He's going to be taking care of all this stuff. So thank you, buddy. And
all right.
And let's see how this turns out. Thank you, guys. And so if you want to hit me up, you can hit me up on Twitter at KingNeptune767. I'm on the subreddit. We have a huge, great mod community on the subreddit and the Discord server. I am trying my best to become a partner with them and give you an awesome link, but I can't. I don't know what that is. It's just a bunch of numbers. So just look on our subreddit and you can figure it out. And Covert, you want to give them links to your stuff?
Sure, yeah, I could post it in the description. I'm on Twitter, but I think I've tweeted maybe 4 things the entire time I've been on there. So you can try to get a hold of me on there, I guess. Or youtube.com/Covert Cabal is the YouTube channel. That's what I do primarily. And we have a Discord server. So the link is in all the videos, and I'll link it here maybe as well. If you want to get a hold of me, that's probably the best place to do it. I get the notifications right to my phone, and I'm more than happy to talk to anyone. So feel free to send me a message anytime.
Yeah, definitely too. Unless you're crazy, I'm just gonna have to cut you off and block you. But it is what it is, man. I'm here to talk submarines all day. That's what I love doing. So
yeah, I don't want to lie. There are a few of those people, but yeah. But if this is something you're interested in, I mean, obviously I am. It sounds like Erica is here too. So feel free to comment or send us a message. Tac Ops is owned and operated by hosts Eric M. and Greg R., along with producer Kyle Smith. Copyright 2019. Music by Kevin MacLeod. Twisted. Creative Commons 3.0.